Well, g'day fishers. Welcome back to Friday Fishing Report time. I need a heater. I need a raincoat. I tell you what a winter we have had here in Port Stephens. It has been, I tell you what, lived here 40 years. I can't remember a winter that's been as cold or as wet for a long time. And looking back on photos that have been fishing in previous winters, bright sunny days, this year just cold and wet, can't even get out fishing. So this weekend doesn't look any better, unfortunately. Another east coast low forming off the coast and lots of rain and stuff like that. But it's a hard one with the forecast. I think the bay might fish okay if you put a raincoat on and are prepared to get out there and give it a crack. So offshore is definitely going to be out. Look, the rocks and the beaches, Port Stephens, although a lot of people say you got to watch swell and stuff like that, Port Stephens, you can actually get out of some areas and actually fish the rocks quite comfortably and quite safely, especially for Ludrick and drummer and bream and things like that. So might be worth a shot for a bit of a rock fish this weekend. It's definitely good for those overcast conditions. Let's begin in the bay. Fishing in the bay, a little bit quiet this week because the weather hasn't been conducive. We've gone from cold westerly winds to northerlies to southerlies to whatever else. But there was a few brave souls that fished the bay during the week. Paul on Fishport Stephens Estuary Charters managed to get into the Mac tuna. So the Mac tuna is still in the bay with the southerly. You'll still be able to fish for them. Just look for the turns and the gulls. Again, feeding on those very small, armory anchovies, but it's those little frogmouth pilchards that they're feeding on, only millimetres long. So if you try and troll through them or cast big lures, you're not going to catch them. You need to cast those little armory anchovies of 5 and 11 grams, swap them out to a single hook and away you go. So that's the deal with the Mac tuna inside the bay at the moment. The kingies are still been around the breakwall at Nelson Bay, so you would have seen young KO getting stuck into the kingies off the breakwall. They're still about. The Ludrick is still about off the breakwall as well, both locations being the Anchorage and Nelson Bay breakwall. So, you know, in a southerly, Ludrick aren't too bad. The bream has still been there as well, so if you're keen on your bream fishing down the breakwall, it is pretty clear at the moment. The water cleared up, but I suspect that's going to change over the next few days if we get the forecast rain that's supposed to come down further up in the valley. We'll see what happens if the water clarity changes. So still some good fishing in the bay. Believe it or not, a couple of winter flatties around. If you're prepared to put in the time, you will find some flatties about right in the shallows on the local beaches in the lower half of the estuary, but you'll have to put the time in to do it. And I think that incoming tide will be the ticket if you want to find a flatty. Now this time of year, because the water is cool, 16 degrees, just slow everything down. Even hard bodies, just slow roll your hard bodies, get it in front of their face. They will eat it. They've got to eat like us. We just put a jumper on, we'll eat a Big Mac any day of the week, except for me. But if you slow everything down, you will find those flatties, winter flatties around. But you will have to work for them if you're keen to do that. We're only talking a month out till spring. Well, it doesn't feel like it. And then once that water starts to heat up, we get some warm days, bring on the flathead fishing. I think it'll be a good spring on the flatties, especially when we move into October. I am counting down the days. There you go. So that's what's happening in the bay at the moment. I reckon it'll be fishable over the weekend. So give that a crack. Now, beaches and rocks. There has been some really good fishing on the beaches and the rocks. Lots of salmon and tailor around on the beaches, especially around Fingal. Big schools of salmon and tailor up Fingal at the moment. So if you're keen for a spin, throwing a pilly into the gutters, you will find salmon and tailor up that way. Bream in the gutters as well. So lots of bream around if you're keen on fishing the beaches for bream. Boxy might be the go this weekend with that southerly. If the swell doesn't pick up too much, Boxy's always great in a southerly. Fingal on the northern side of Fingal there can fish pretty well too. So give that a shot. On the beaches, you could get down to 1 mile there in the southern corner of Wunny. It might fish okay as long as there's not too much swell. It does get a bit of a rip through there at the moment. And Barooby, as far as that is concerned, well, I think that'll be a write-off this weekend. So definitely worth a fish on the beach if the swell doesn't pick up too much. Now on the rocks have been fishing extremely well. Still longtails about off Tomaree. If you can get a spot, apparently, I think you've got to turn up at 1 a.m. and camp on the rocks. Just unfortunately though, a couple of locals said that the rubbish is a bit of an issue. You don't pick your rubbish up, we're going to get locked out of these spots. So make sure you take your rubbish home. Otherwise, national parks, they're just going to turn around and lock it off. See you later. goodbye Tomaree. And they have threatened that before. In the years that I used to fish it, we used to pick our rubbish up, but I have seen national parks up there and definitely taking note of it. So just pick your rubbish up. It's pretty easy, actually. Put it in your backpack and away you go. Anyway, we'll move on from that. So longtail's still about. Drummer off the rocks this weekend, definitely be the go. Lots of brim in the washers. And after this sweller baits, I think next week it'll be worth a shot for a snapper off the rocks, as well as we get lead up into that full moon coming up in a week or two. Be definitely worth a snapper off the rocks. It is prime time for snapper off the rocks, if you ask me. It'd be worth giving that a crack. Now on the offshore, look, a few reports of snapper, those that braved and got out there. Shane and his young daughter Jazzy went out off Boat Harbour and brained the snapper. Got some absolute beauties, did an arvo session. Got some really nice fish up to 3 or 4 kilos. He sent me some photos. We'll throw those up on our socials today. So well done to Jazzy, getting some really, really nice snapper. So those shallow water snapper will be worth a shot once that swell clears. Likewise up towards Broughton, some good kings still about. I know Seal Rocks had some really nice kings about there a bit over a week ago. So some nice kings up that way. So unfortunately, not much to report offshore because this weekend is probably going to be a write-off with fishing offshore. But looking further ahead at the forecast for next week, it'll be worth a shot if you can get an RDO, a sickie, or whatever it may be, a fishing day next week. Pick your weather and go for it. Anyway, that's it for the Fishery Report this week. It is short and sweet. Plenty of new product coming in the shop. Holy dooly, we're building new walls actually to put all the new product in. So watch this space, believe it or not. But get in store if you're bored this weekend because we do have plenty of good stock and we've got some cracking deals as always. Anyway, that's it for this week.